In October 2008, Sequoia Capital, one of the world's top venture capital firms, sent a letter to its portfolio companies that was titled, "Rest in Peace, Good Times." This missive was in the wake of the global financial crisis, asking companies to reduce costs to stay on the growth path. In March of 2020, Sequoia once again has issued a warning call, calling the coronavirus outbreak the black swan of 2020. The VC firm warned that this pandemic-induced crisis that's being touted as more serious than the Great Depression may be contained only after several quarters, and it could take even longer for the global economy to recover its footing. Well, the writing is on the wall. The IMF has cut its global economic forecast for 2020 and is now predicting the coronavirus pandemic will cause a much deeper recession and a slower recovery than was originally expected. The story for India is no different. In fact, India's vibrant startup ecosystem has taken a battering as the virus has upended every aspect of business. Growth targets have gone out of the window, and it is back to the drawing board to ensure that companies are able to stay above water. And while the great lockdown of 2020 is unlike anything the world has seen before, yet there are lessons to be learned, pivots to be made, and green shoots waiting to be discovered for businesses during this recession and beyond as we adjust to the new normal. Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shereen, Bhan, and with me now is a man who can help us make sense of this crisis and share lessons for the future. N R Narayana Murthy, the co-founder of Infosys and also the founder of Catamaran Ventures. Mr. Murthy, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here on Young Turks, sir. Thanks very much for your time. In the context of what we just spoke of, which is the great lockdown and its impact and implications for the global economy as well as the Indian economy, let me ask you about what you have made about India's response. We've had 4 lockdowns and we're now in the midst of unlocking. Do you believe that our response has been A, data-driven, proactive, reactive? How would you assess it?
Well, I have learned that rating the performance of any country has to be done after carefully considering its context. India has traditionally not invested heavily in public health. We have severe shortage of resources, both in talent and in material, as far as public health is concerned. Further, we're not a very disciplined nation. Social distancing and use of masks are not strictly followed. We face some serious distraction in our border. Therefore, under the circumstances, I believe we have done a decent job.
Okay.
The 2 most important politicians in the country, the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, I believe have taken direct charge of the situation. Or I can say that the Indian government is doing its best. While the PM has indeed become a role model for the nation in social distancing, from what I see on the TV, there's a lot of scope for our state level politicians to become role models in strictly following the rules of lockdown.
Okay.
Social distancing. Now, let me answer the second part of your question. The government has realized the importance of restarting the economy and supporting MSMEs and low-wage workers. They plan to spend about 10% of our GDP, which is approximately $300 billion, on wages for the low-wage workers who have lost their jobs, on loan guarantees for MSMEs, and for creating the infrastructure for fighting the virus. So, unfortunately, I do not have data on how much of this amount has been actually dispersed.
Right. Yes, we are seeing the government put out information on how much of this has been disbursed. But Mr. Murthy, I want to talk to you about the implications of economic growth going forward, given the fact that we are now in the midst of unlocking, but we've also got a situation where the cases continue to rise. So we haven't flattened the curve even as we've reopened. The messaging now from the government is that, look, we've got to learn to live with the virus, at least until there is a breakthrough on the medical front, either through a drug or a vaccine. corporate India as well as global companies are now talking about the new normal. Now, what to your mind is this new normal? What are the attributes or the features of this new normal according to you? And how do you believe we now need to navigate through this?
Right from the first day of lockdown, my personal view has been that we have to be prepared to live with the virus. There are three reasons. First, there is no vaccine. Second, there is no cure. And third, we cannot let our economy come to a halt. So the smartness is to define, as you said, a new normal. This normal should allow our economy to grow while bringing down the R factor and fighting the virus successfully. It should allow every player in every sector of our economy to operate at full steam with suitable precautions. It should allow us to work on enhancing the infrastructure for increased testing, improved care for the COVID-19 patients, finding a vaccine and a cure for the virus. We should become comfortable with social distancing and the use of masks and gloves as if we are breathing. It should become breathing. That's what I would say.
Yes, those will have to be part of this new normal that we speak of. But Mr. Murthy, let's talk about the opportunities as well as the challenges in this new normal, in this new world order. There is a view that we are going to see a significant dislocation as far as the global supply chain is concerned, given what we're seeing between the US and China and now between India and China. The services sector has taken a much bigger hit this time around in comparison to the manufacturing sector, which has traditionally been the case in previous crises. So as you look at the picture today, where do you believe are the big opportunities that a country like India can capitalize on? And what do you believe will be the crucial challenges that we need to deal with?
Well, Shereen, the challenges are many. First of all, IISc, that is Indian Institute of Science, our ICERs, IITs, specialized research institutions like NCBS and CSIR laboratories have an aspirational challenge ahead of them. That is to find a vaccine and a cure ahead of countries like the US, the UK, and China, and of course, many other countries. Institutes like ISI will have a challenge in using statistics and machine learning to create models to estimate the spread of the virus and spread of the disease and predict the number of cases likely to come up month by month by month. The second challenge we have is our companies have the aspirational challenge of producing portable testers that are cheap so that every urban colony and every village has well-trained workers for testing for COVID-19. Third, it is a challenge for our companies to scale up manufacturing of vaccines and medicines on the scale that will be needed in India. Once an Indian or a foreign company releases an authentic vaccine and a verifiable medicinal cure for COVID-19 to the market. It is also a challenge for India to bring down the spreading of the virus, not to allow the number of cases to rise to about 10 million Indians. If you look at what has happened in the West, about 0.7% of the people have contracted the disease. So on that count, about 10 million Indians may contract the disease, and the number of deaths could go to as high as 300,000. Our challenge is to prevent that. Now, let me talk a little bit about our opportunity. It is an extraordinary opportunity for the bureaucracy at both the central and the state level to show that they are modern project managers, making India overcome the impact of this virus. It is a great opportunity for the Public Health Foundation of India and the Indian Institute of Public Health to create a robust plan to keep the R factor low and minimize the impact of COVID-19 for the next 3 months, 6 months, a year, etc. It is a great opportunity for our Indian institutes of management to collaborate with IIPH to create a robust project plan for reducing the R factor and for creating infrastructure for the increased patient population that will result due to COVID-19. It is an opportunity for Government of India and the state government to create a specialized public health cadre in each, so that we can be well prepared to handle not just the COVID-19, but any future pandemic. It is also a great opportunity, finally, for our corporate leaders. I am deliberately putting corporate leaders first, politicians or bureaucrats, and our elite in our society to become role models for discipline in social distancing and use of masks. I would say these are the challenges and opportunities.
I think you make a very important point there, sir, about creating a specialized public health cadre, and perhaps that is something that India should look at as we deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and future pandemics. But let me pivot a little bit away from this issue to talk about what you make of what is happening with the startup ecosystem. Now, this is a community of young Indian entrepreneurs. We've seen this community mature, especially over the last few years. The fear at this point in time is that funding will dry up. Growth, of course, is a casualty on account of what is happening with the pandemic. Do you expect a significant shakeout within the startup ecosystem? And what is it that you would tell young entrepreneurs who are trying to make all kinds of pivots? There are people who were running brick and mortar businesses who are now trying to make a digital pivot. What is it that you would tell startups, the do's and don'ts?
You know, first of all, I must say, Shereen, that your contribution to the startup scene in India has been seminal, because you have given them a platform, you have publicized their effort, you have given them encouragement, etc., etc. So I don't know if I can say it in front of you, but I will still say, because you have asked. First of all, our entrepreneurs will have to be courageous. That is the first attribute of an entrepreneur, a leader. Second, they have to be positive. Whenever there is any crisis, the first requirement for all of us leaders is to be positive. Third, they have to set up an aspirational target. Fourth, they have to lead by example. Fifth, they have to give confidence to their juniors through their inspirational talk, citing their own example of courage, sacrifice, hard work, discipline, and other good values. I always believed that entrepreneurship is about seeing opportunities that others do not see. Therefore, I would tell entrepreneurs to go ahead and explore. They may find opportunities in testing, in selling medicines when they come out, in setting up vaccine centers when they come out, in improving productivity of workers in the new normal, and reducing the costs of large companies and many other areas. Then entrepreneurs are used to hard work, working at odd hours, and austerity. Therefore, this is their time to put all of this into action. As my friend, respected Rahul Bajaj, often says, competition is the best management guru. Therefore, I would urge the entrepreneurs to embrace competition wholeheartedly, and they will do everything properly. Then they have to benchmark their companies, global competitors in their field, and will automatically deliver the products even for the Indian consumers, and also, of course, for the export market. And finally, I would say they have to look after their lowest level employees' welfare before they worry about themselves. I would say that if our entrepreneurs were to do these 10 things that I mentioned, I have no doubt at all that this country will indeed do a very good job in the startup system.
Well, that's the 10 commandments there from N R Narayana Murthy for Indian startups or startups in general as they try and navigate their way through these difficult times. Competition is the best management tool, rightly said, Mr. Murthy. But, you know, since we're talking about private enterprise, let me ask you about what you make of the way that private enterprise has dealt with this crisis. And I go back to, again, one of your peers, Mr. Ratan Tata, in a recent interview to CNBC-TV18 said that while the smokestack industry is only tweaking its supply chain model, startups have been able to adapt and respond faster to the changing environment. Would you agree?
Well, you know, as I told you before, entrepreneurs believe in speed, imagination, inspiration, hard work, excellence in execution, and austerity. Therefore, I agree with Ratan's observation. My own experience with startups has been very similar.
Okay, you're saying that, so let me then build on that and talk to you about your experience with startups. At Catamaran, given the opportunities and challenges that you listed out for us, where do you believe that you're going to be placing your bets? Where would you like to make investments? What does the landscape look like for you as an investor? Where would you put your money today?
You know, right from the beginning, we are sector agnostic. We first look for the right competence and the right values. Even at Infosys, if you remember, when I was the CEO, we introduced the byline. We said, powered by intellect, driven by values. So I always believe that intellect, competence, and values are extremely important for the success of any entrepreneur. Once we see these two in an entrepreneur, then we look at the idea, the market, and the team. That's what I would say.
Okay, intellect driven by values. But Mr. Murthy, you know, since we're talking about the new normal, one of the features that's being discussed widely, and it could have significant implications, not just on how companies look at real estate, etc. And I know that you've believed in creating these islands of prosperity, these campuses at Infosys, which, you know, are areas of excellence, so to speak. So in this new era of work from home, what do you believe will be the future, and especially when it comes to the real estate that companies like Infosys, etc., set up?
Well, you know, those were designed and built for a time when there were very seminal contributions. I've always believed that organizational culture is the most important input for the success in the marketplace. In fact, culture of a company is what is best built when you work together in person, when you are close to each other, when you walk into somebody else's room, when you discuss issues in a meeting, when you discuss debate, or I am not a great fan of work from home concept. I also believe that work from home concept will only succeed if there are very good, well-established work productivity standards for every level of the workers in a company. Second, if the workers are provided all the required tools at home. And third, if there's an environment conducive to hard work at home.
Hmm.
I don't know. I have not made any study. I can't comment. I don't know how many companies have been able to satisfy these three criteria.
Okay.
Also, I want you to remember, Shereen, that the work from home is applicable only to a small percentage of India's workforce,
Hmm.
perhaps somewhere between 3% to 5% at best. So therefore, I think it is not, we should not make too much of it.
Huh.
So also, I personally am not a great believer in work from home.
Okay, not a great believer in work for home, and you don't believe that it's going to necessarily be a permanent structural shift, or at least at this point in time, the data doesn't seem to suggest so. We will need to wait to see. Speaking of data, sir, and I know that you've always believed that in data we must trust, and that has been your philosophy so far. Do you believe that we're seeing enough of data-driven policy decisions, and is that a casualty of the times that we're living in, that the reaction or the response is more anecdotal as opposed to based on empirical evidence?
You know, for the 30 years that I was the executive chairman of Infosys, every issue was brought to the table, discussed amongst the relevant experts using data and facts, and the person with the best data and fact won the argument. Therefore, I've always believed in the adage, in God we trust, everybody else brings data and facts to the table. Now, I would also like to say that most advanced nations do use data for creating policies. The beauty of using data for decisions, that's what I found over the last 30 years that I was the executive chairman, is that you eliminate personal biases and prejudices. That's why we have always fought for the hierarchy of ideas rather than hierarchy of job titles and hierarchy of corner rooms at Infosys.
In God we trust, everyone else brings data to the table. This is something that I've heard Mr. Murthy speak of for many, many years now. So where do you believe we are likely to see the green shoots emerge first as far as the Indian economy is concerned? The consensus estimate seems to be that we will see a contraction of at least 5%. And it's uncertain because we don't know what this case rise will eventually lead to, whether there could be a reimposition of lockdowns. We're already seeing that happen in different states in different degrees. What's your best estimate in terms of where you expect the green shoots to first emerge?
Well, I'm not an economist, but I do read the articles by economists. I have read a wonderful wonderful article by Professor Shankaracharya, who was the chief economic advisor of India. And his estimate is that we may lose about 5% of our GDP growth. I think that makes eminent sense. And many other people are talking about deceleration by as much as 5% of our economy. But my own view is we don't have to get too much worried about this. The whole world is facing. The world is becoming more and more cost conscious. The world is becoming more and more competitive because of two factors. One, there is a certain anti-China feeling, right or wrong, I don't know. I'm not a politician. I am a pure ex-businessman. And next, Brexit. So therefore, because of these two phenomena, I do believe that there will be a lot of foreign companies, particularly companies from the UK and also from other parts of the world, which will try to explore the Indian market. Therefore, our corporate leaders and entrepreneurs will have tremendous competition in India in the coming years. So my own request to these wonderful people is that they have to accept market competition as Rahul Bajaj has said many times, and ensure that we use speed, imagination, meritocracy, discussion, debate, market orientation, and excellence in execution to grow like China. I mean, China has demonstrated in our own lifetime, they grew to about $2.5 trillion of exports. I am not a politician. There are wonderful politicians in the country to tackle the difference of opinion that we have with China, and they are most competent, and they and the army people will do whatever is required. So I am nobody to talk on that. However, my philosophy has always been to learn from people who have performed better than us. Reality is that China has performed very well by global standards, not just Indian standards. So therefore, I would not lose my sleep. I think there is a large country like India which has demonstrated through hard work, discipline, and innovation to take their exports to as much as $2.5 trillion and their own economy to as much as $15 trillion. Therefore, I would say that we should focus on hard work, discipline, austerity, innovation, excellence in execution, etc. This is the mantra that we have to focus. That's what I would say.
Well, that's the mantra according to N R Narayana Murthy. Mr. Murthy, it's always a pleasure, sir. Appreciate you joining us here on this special edition of Young Turks as we've completed 18 years. You've been part of this journey from the very start with us. Thank you for your encouragement and your support. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Very much. Very kind of you.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Young Turks. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.